The security of most homes relies on a 1-inch piece of soft pine lumber. Shocking thought, isn't it? In all actuality, the weakest link in a door's locking system isn't the lock at all, but the door frame. If you look closely at your entry doors, you'll notice that the wood is only 1 inch thick where the deadbolt inserts into the frame. To make matters worse, most deadbolt strike plates are only secured by 1-inch screws that don't anchor into anything behind the door frame. Here's a surveillance video I found of an actual home robbery. This shows how easy it is to gain entry into a home by kicking in a door that isn't reinforced. One kick, and he is in. Over 70% of home break-ins happen this way. In this video, I will show how to reinforce your entry doors to the point where even a guy like Macho Man Randy Savage can't kick it in.
The Macho Man Randy Savage is not happy. I'm on my way.
First, get a heavy-duty mending plate like the one pictured here that's made of 12-gauge galvanized steel. Place the mending plate on the back of the door casing and center it on the deadbolt. Trace an outline of the mending plate on the wood and an outline of the deadbolt hole on the mending plate. Cut a hole in the mending plate to accept the deadbolt. This can be done in a number of ways. I used a vise, a drill, and a file. This really wasn't that hard to do. However, if you don't want to cut the hole yourself, take the mending plate to a machine shop and tell them what you want done. Chisel out a little wood within the outlined area on the back of the door frame. Once the mending plate can fit in the chiseled area, you're done chiseling. Attach the plate to the frame with 1/4 inch screws, or some that are short enough that won't go all the way through the frame. This serves the purpose of holding the mending plate in place on the frame. Drill holes in the door frame through the pre-drilled holes in the mending plate. I drilled a total of 4 holes that were evenly spaced throughout the plate. I then countersink the holes to better accept the screw heads. This will help you line up the screws through those holes in the plate during the door installation process. Place the door in the opening and secure the hinge side. Place wood behind the hinges and drive 2 3.5 inch number 10 screws in each hinge. Make sure the hinge side is plumb and that the door opens and closes correctly. When the hinge side is secure, place a piece of wood in the crack between the house framing and the mending plate that's close to the length of the mending plate. This will better secure the door by preventing the door frame from being twisted if force is applied. Drive 4-inch number 10 screws into the 4 holes that were drilled through the door frame. Well, now it's time to put on the strike plate. Be sure to choose one that's heavy duty and put it in with 3.5 inch number 10 screws. The one that came with the lock that I purchased, shown here, was already pretty heavy duty, so I decided to use it. I had to chisel out some wood, and I also had to drill holes through the mending plate so I could use the longer screws that came with it. As you can see, the throw of the deadbolt will go through both plates, which will make it next to impossible to kick open. A piece of angle iron or a mending plate can be used to reinforce an existing exterior door. First, remove the trim to expose the door casing where the deadbolt is located. Be careful not to damage it because it can be reused. Hold the angle iron or mending plate in place and trace an outline on the door jamb. An angle iron 8 to 10 inches long will do. For the mending plate, I used a Simpson strong tie that is approximately 3 by 7 inches and made of 16 gauge galvanized steel. Chisel some wood out of the door casing by following the line that you traced. Chisel out enough so that the top of the metal is even with the top of the door casing. This will allow the trim to fit evenly on the door casing when it's reinstalled. Also, place a piece of wood in the crack between the door casing and the framing that's close to the length of the metal reinforcement. This will better secure the door by preventing the door frame from twisting if force is applied. Make sure the metal reinforcement you use isn't wider than your trim, otherwise it won't be completely covered. Attach the plate to the door casing with 1.5-inch screws and to the house's framing with 3.5-inch screws. Remember to drill pilot holes to prevent the wood from splitting. After the door has been reinforced, be sure to seal the gap between the door casing and the framing with insulation spray foam. This is a good insulator and a good adhesive that will help hold the door casing in place. After the insulation foam has dried, put the trim back on